The big question that's being asked about Marilyn's death is, was she murdered?
I have not said that she was murdered. The evidence, however, isn't clear.
Marilyn Monroe was the symbol of beauty in the 1950s, but that's not news for anyone. And she still is one of the most iconic and glamorous actresses to this day. Obviously, her beauty was one that couldn't go unrecognized. Every single living man, and even some women, has dreamed about Marilyn at least once in their life. But there are only a few lucky ones that got to experience dating Marilyn. Or so we thought. Apart from her 3 husbands, it seems that there is a longer list of all the secret lovers Marilyn has had in her life. So who were some of these not-so-secret lovers she had? And what is the shady truth behind them? You know the Marilyn on the sidewalk with her skirt blowing up from the wind, the one who made history with her dumb and seductive blonde act, and the one who sang for John F. Kennedy's birthday? Well, that may be the Marilyn Monroe we know, but it wasn't who she really was. After all, her name isn't even her real one. Marilyn Monroe was only Norma Jean Baker, the daughter of Gladys Baker and Charles, in the beginning. She was born into an unhappy home. Her father wasn't present, and her mom was there in the beginning, at least physically. But Monroe was neglected her entire childhood, and she never had one place to call home. She basically went from one place to another, going to an orphanage, 10 different foster homes, and then living with a guardian for 4 years is not stable enough for a little girl. She needed her mother and a home, but she didn't get either since her mom was sent off to a mental institution because of her unstable mental health. All of this never stopped her from pursuing her dreams. She took baby steps, which eventually made her one of the most known names in Hollywood. Marilyn began by becoming a model after she started working at a weapons factory. One of the war photographers saw her potential and beauty, so he started capturing it. Marilyn also saw this as a great opportunity, and after all, she loved the camera, and the camera loved her too. So she dyed her brown hair blonde and posed for even more photos, which led to her being signed by Blue Book Model Agency. It didn't take long before she was signed by 20th Century Fox and changed her name from Norma to the Marilyn Monroe we know to this day. Her career didn't have a great kickstart at first, but she kept working hard, and finally, everyone knew the name of Marilyn Monroe. She now had scored her signature look, the blonde hair, the beauty spot, and red lips, and everyone wanted the beautiful and talented Marilyn in their movies. Scoring a role in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and How to Marry a Millionaire was just the cherry on top of everything. But Marilyn wasn't only adored by all the film agencies and producers, she was the ultimate sex and beauty symbol, and everyone wanted to have her. So let's see who the lucky men that got to marry her were. Marilyn didn't have many options when it came to housing when she was young, and at one point it was between her going to an orphanage again or getting married and having a home to call her own. Obviously at that time, the latter seemed like the best choice. The man in question that she was supposed to marry was her neighbor's son, James Doherty, who was still in his 20s while Marilyn was barely turning 16. Actually, the two of them got married only 18 days after her 16th birthday. James was the first lucky man to have her. He was a police officer and seemed to actually love Marilyn, but he knew Marilyn was too young. She was too young to get married. It wasn't that we were not in love, she was just, I thought 16 years old was too young to get married, but she was fully mature physically, James said. She just wanted to be a good wife, and she wanted to be secure, and she wanted to be loved, and she wanted to feel like she belonged to somebody. They were very important to her. But Monroe didn't think the same thing. Marilyn's friends noticed that Marilyn didn't feel comfortable. She was scared. For my information, she even asked if it were possible for her to never have sex with Jim. Could they just be friends, she wondered? Martin Evans, a close friend of Marilyn, said. After a while, James went off to join the Merchant Navy, and Marilyn was left all alone once again. This definitely brought up some memories from her childhood. She did start feeling happier when she started finding her purpose, started modeling, and even got signed to be an actress. But her career came with an ultimatum. Marilyn had to be a single woman in order to get signed. Marilyn knew she had to let go of her past, which included James too. So their marriage came to an end when she asked for a divorce. Her second marriage was slightly shorter than the first. The second husband was Joe DiMaggio, a former New York Yankees baseball player. At first, they were obsessed and in love with each other. Joe even used to shower her with roses many times in one day. But as time passed, Joe noticed that Monroe's fame was bothering him. He was jealous that she was more famous than him and all of the attention she got from men, so he'd often take his anger out on her. But what triggered the divorce was Marilyn's scene with the flying white dress in The 7-Year Itch, and after 9 months, they ended their marriage. And her third and final marriage was to Arthur Miller. They were a pretty odd couple, and at first no one believed that they were even together, but it seemed that they'd fallen in love and that nothing could get in the middle of that. Nothing except some of Miller's letters that Marilyn found. Apparently in the letters, Arthur wrote about how embarrassed he was of Monroe, and this was ultimately the reason behind their divorce. But Marilyn knew she was never meant to be a wife. She wanted to be free, and the secret lovers that she had are proof of that. It's no secret that Marilyn was the most desirable woman back then. Honestly, she still would be to this day if she were still alive. Her beauty is undeniable, so we're not surprised that her love life was one of the main topics people talked about. There were many rumors about people she dated and had affairs with, but none of them were ever confirmed. That never stopped people from talking. If Marilyn slept with every guy that claims he was with her, she would have never had time to make any movies, her good friend Sam Shaw said. The list of men that people claim she had some sort of relationship with includes Charlie Chaplin Jr., Milton Berle, Marlon Brando, Frank Sinatra, Jerry Lewis, and Tony Curtis. But a few names stood out more than others. Those are the names of the Kennedy brothers. Yes, Marilyn had an affair with John F. Kennedy himself, and it seems to be a little shady. One day I was coming back home and there's this helicopter doing a low, lazy circle above it, and there were these guys in funny suits and funny glasses standing around watching Marilyn Monroe and JFK having a frolic in the pool. Jack Lemmon, who was one of the first people to know about the affair, said, "So whatever stories you've heard about Marilyn," he added, "this one is true. It was a big affair for her, and she was in a deep relationship with JFK. Whether he thought the same, we'll never know. I think for sure she shouldn't have gotten mixed up in the Kennedy clan, but she was the type of girl that looked straight into trouble and no one could ever advise her." This wasn't like any of her other affairs because both John and Bobby were powerful and dangerous men. At some point, Marilyn even became a national security threat because people thought the Kennedy brothers revealed state secrets to her during their pillow talks. And then only 3 months after she sang happy birthday to President Kennedy publicly, Marilyn was found dead. That raised a few eyebrows, because was it really an overdose, or was something shadier going on here? Well, people seem to think that the Kennedy brothers were definitely behind it. I did find evidence the circumstances of her death had been deliberately covered up, an investigative journalist, Anthony Summers, said. If there's any mystery about Monroe's death, powerful and important eminent men seemed to be central. This isn't the only thing that will forever be a mystery. Marilyn was a mysterious woman, and her real sexuality is one of the other things no one seems to have an answer for. It seems that Marilyn's fan base wasn't made entirely out of men. Sure, she was only public with her relationships with men, but it's come to everyone's attention that she might have dated a woman or two on the low-key. But that leaves us with the question, did she even like these men in the first place? Or were her marriages only a setup for her image? Well, there is a lot of proof from her close friends that shows that Marilyn never really enjoyed dating men that much. Marilyn Monroe gave a quote herself that said, "A man who had kissed me once said it was very possible I was a lesbian, because I apparently had no response to males," meaning him. "I didn't contradict him because I didn't know what I was." Even Marilyn's director, Jean Negulesco, said her whole existence was a search for identity, and her sexual identity was a complete lie. Marilyn told her that she had never felt pleasure in bed with a man in her entire life. Well, now that we know that she's dated a few women, including Joan Crawford, Barbara Stanwyck, Marlene Dietrich, and Elizabeth Taylor, we can understand that maybe she just wasn't that into men. Monroe's true orientation was toward women. Her 3 marriages disguised her real sexual identity. Her relationship with the Kennedys was as much about power and influence as it was about sex. With women, the affairs were more about sex and love, Peter Lawford said. Not many of the women she dated have said anything about the rumors, except for Jane Lawrence. The two of them met when Jane was only 12, and Monroe was 14 years older than her. The two of them bonded over their hard childhood and the fact that they were both adopted from the same orphanage. They became close friends, and they obviously talked about everything together, including Jane's confusion about her sexuality. Nothing ever happened between them until one night Monroe started seducing Jane after taking drugs together. The next few minutes became hazy, surreal, and dreamlike. My pulse leaped as Marilyn kissed my thigh again. She then leaned in and kissed me full on the lips, very softly and slowly. I was nearly hyperventilating, Lawrence said. With the girls I had enjoyed sleeping with, there was often a shyness and hesitancy, not the hunger and confidence Marilyn displayed. At least at this point, Jane knew she was definitely gay, whereas Monroe never openly spoke about it. Maybe she was just a free spirit that enjoyed relationships with whoever she desired. One serious relationship she's had with a woman was with her German drama teacher, Natasha Leites. Yeah, out of everyone, she picked her teacher, but it was pretty serious. Apparently, they lived together as man and wife for 2 whole years. Everything Monroe has ever done remains a mystery to this day. We can never know about her relationships for sure, let alone her real sexuality, but there was definitely something shady going on if she had to keep all of them a secret. The beautiful Monroe spent her whole life acting, both in her movies and in real life. We just hope she experienced at least a glimpse of happiness before she died. If you liked this video, make sure to watch this other one.